Side. The ghost guy, Larry Lawson, is your host. With years of experience in law enforcement, he knows how to search for the truth. Stay right here as Larry and his guests from around the world discuss paranormal evidence and answer your questions about encounters with the other side.
And welcome back, everyone, to Encounters with the Other Side. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, also known as the Ghost Guy.
The
Ghost Guy. I'm here along with the engineer extraordinaire, Cliff Desmond, running the show for us today. So,
while
Cliff,
tightrope walking.
yeah, it is, Cliff. Thanks for being here today. Our guests are in Australia, and we're still waiting for them to arrive.
And they might still arrive, but if they don't, we have to have a plan B.
Always have a plan B. Always have a plan B. But let me tell you a little bit, folks, how to listen to the show. You can hear us live on WPSL 1590 AM, or you can catch us on the website, www.wpsl, and hear us live from there. You can also catch us on the TuneIn app, which you can get to from WPSL.com. The TuneIn app will get you live to us. Google Home and Alexa are also the other two ways to hear us. You also, if you miss it all, you don't see us or hear us today, you can catch us on YouTube with a live video or a video feed of the program too.
That's right. We archive the shows up there on YouTube under WPSLTV.com. A quick link to get us over there when you it usually takes about 24 hours after the show before it gets up there, because I do a little editing for you. I put titles up and,
try to make me look better, right?
Well, yeah, now I don't know if we can do that, but we can. We've always specialized in making people sound as good as we could, and now we've got video going, so that's what makes it a little more challenging now.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the neat things about WPSL is we are truly the webcasters of the world. We've got listeners all over the world. I guess the latest ones I heard of are up in northern Finland, Lapland.
Oh yeah, we call that DX land.
DX land, yes, from radio.
The internet, the TuneIn app. But we were the first to utilize the slogan "Webcaster to the World," and when we first started doing, Mark Cuban had AudioNet going,
right,
and we just so happened to carry the Art Bell show in the middle of the nights during those days, and Art was getting calls from parts of the world where there was no phone line available, or you had to know how to get out of the country you were in to get into the phone system. So he called one day and I got to talk to him, and in fact he pulled me in on his show, and he talked about strange things all the time. That's why I loved his show. And we got to this point to where we were realizing that, well, people are listening in on the internet, and we're in sunny South Florida, and people were hearing his show, and we're actually figured out how to get a U.S. landline area code or something.
Right.
And they actually called the show and participated. And so we talked about that for a little bit.
Yeah. And folks, I know there's folks from across the pond in England and in other parts of the world listening to us. Let us know. Give me a holler here.
Yeah.
You call the station, or you can get a hold of me at ghostguy59@gmail.com. You can send me an email. I'd love to hear from you from overseas. So there's lots of ways to hear us. This is also a call-in show. You can get a hold of us at 772-340-1590. That's 1590. Sounds familiar, the radio frequency.
Never be afraid to seek. Seeking is okay. It's okay to seek.
So give us a call. We love to answer your questions about what you think the paranormal is and is not. Want to give some shout outs like I normally do to sponsors and friends of the show. My good friend Pete Anderson at Paradolia Brewery, once again, and on Cleveland Street there in Sebastian. I think the number one brewery in the country,
if not the number one haunted brewery.
Oh, it is. It is. Yeah. We've had some really interesting investigations in that place. And Cliff, what's interesting about the Paradolia is it was actually, the current building was built in the 59 or 60 as a post office.
Ooh.
And it's no reason it should be haunted. But what a lot of folks don't realize, that's not always the building. Sometimes it's the land. But we've gotten some really interesting things here. We had Pete on, I think the second or third show that we did. And he talked about the crazy things that have gone on in the brewery. And he wasn't a believer either. So he had some cool stories.
Now that's got to be the strangest thing of all, when you get a non-believer into one of your public tours
Sure.
on some paranormal investigating, and you have great results.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Michael Spanky Maxwell, some of you out there might remember that name. Spanky was a retired St. Lucie County firefighter, and he's my lead investigator on the investigation side of the operation. And that's what happened to him. His wife drug him to one of my events, and he didn't believe it at all. But he was there for one, and the things that we got out in Fellsmere were so mind-boggling that he decided he had to find out more about it. So he became part of the team, and now he's my right-hand guy.
Wow. All right.
So real happy to have Spanky on board. But that's a good example. And a lot of my team members came as a result of things that we were doing, saw what was going on, saw our philosophies, our methodologies, how we did things, how we viewed things, and decided they wanted to be part of it. So that does happen. So want to say hi to Ike Enzi at IDK Paranormal. IDK Paranormal is a YouTube show, and Ike is a retired police chief out in New Mexico. And they've got some fascinating stories, just like we have stories of pirates and things like that here in Florida. Out in the southwestern part of the U.S., they have a lot of other types of paranormal events that go on out there. And Ike it's a great show. I highly recommend it. Look him up on YouTube, IDK Paranormal. Got some great stories from the great Southwest of the U.S. So I want to say hi to him. Annabis Paranormal Research Organization. We've had Chris George on the show too. Chris runs an operation in the North Oregon and in that part of the country. And he's a former law enforcement park ranger. And he's got some interesting stuff regarding people in the parks and paranormal events that had in the parks. He told one interesting story about a guy that was lost. They found him and he was missing something, and it was above his shoulders, and the rest of him was just sitting on a log, but the head was gone. That's an interesting story. Nobody could figure that one out. So Annabis Paranormal Research Organization, you can find them on Facebook as well as YouTube. And of course, our dear friends Nikki and Sherry up in Orlando, Doodlebug Dowsing. They create the dowsing rods that we use in our investigations. And if you want to see how dowsing rods are used on our investigations, you can go to our YouTube channel, which is Indian River Hauntings. And there's an episode, our first produced episode of a TV-like show, kind of outlining what our team does and how we conduct our investigations. And in that, you'll see some really successful use of dowsing rods, getting questions that we're able to corroborate through historical reference and whatnot. So that's a great way to check out how dowsing rods work. But Doodlebug Dowsing makes all of our rods.
The first time I ever heard of dowsing, there was a guy with a stick. It was Y-shaped, and he's holding the upper part of the Y, and he's looking for water on his property. And I always thought, that can't be real. There's no way. I don't know. But then again, we always used the old ways until the new ways came along and taught us differently.
Well, you say that was hogwash when you first saw it, but people have been using dowsing or divining rods for centuries to find water. In fact, on the tours, we bring out our walking tours that we do on the beach in Vero. We do downtown Vero, we do in Sebastian, and in the events we do out in Fellsmere. We always use dowsing rods. And I've had people on these events that were well drillers. They looked for water. And they said to this day, they use dowsing rods to locate water sources.
I've heard that.
Yep, it's true.
Well companies that drill wells. How about that?
Yeah, it all has to do with energy. And, that's one of the reasons why we do what we do, Cliff. This stuff is documented, accurate. Things like dowsing rods. People have talked about events or experiences they've had. It can't all be happening and there not be something to it. And that's the purpose of our investigative group, the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, is to investigate and try to find the answers. And wherever the evidence takes us is where we're going to go.
Okay.
So we can talk about more about that in just a few more minutes, what our philosophies are.
Oh, yeah.
So
I noticed that you do have a lot of former law enforcement officers that are involved in paranormal investigation.
well,
Is that a reason for that?
yeah, back when I first started back in the dark ages in the business, you didn't talk about stuff like this. You had events happening, you kept it to yourself. Maybe one or two of your zone partners or shift mates might have seen it or experienced, but you never talked about it because you were too afraid of being sent to the
Signal 20.
well, sent to where we would be further evaluated, if you will.
Yeah.
And so you didn't talk about it, but time went on, and I think it was in the early part of the 2000s when paranormal shows, reality shows started coming out. Folks began to accept the paranormal as a little bit more mainstream. Okay, maybe, and when that happened, folks started talking more about it, and even folks in my business started talking about it. And yeah, Cliff, there's a lot of individuals in the law enforcement, public safety realm that have had experiences and are now more willing to talk about it. And the question I get often is why? Why do we have those kinds of experiences? And I think it's because of what we do. We're in situations of high stress, danger, emotions, people dying
Their own
unexpectedly.
energies.
I mean, there all the theories that come with the study of the paranormal. And so we're there. I saw a really interesting video out of, it was New Mexico, I believe. And if anybody's out there has seen the video, please call in if I get any of this incorrect. But it was a videotape inside of a fenced-in area of a police department. And it was where they kept evidence, cars and stuff that they'd compounded. And they got a figure that was walking through the middle. It went through the chain fence, through the parking area, and it was a white,
on a security camera.
On a security camera, a police department security camera.
Okay.
And out the other side. And they interviewed the officers that were on duty. That they looked at the video and they said they could not. I think it was dispatchers that actually saw the figure in there. And there's also been quite a few videos or pictures taken by folks at accident scenes where somebody's unfortunately passed, and then there would be an anomaly on there, something that's shaped uncannily like a human form. And there's actually quite a bit of that that's out there. And now we're talking about it. And while I'm bringing that up, one thing I did find on YouTube, which is really interesting, and I'd encourage folks out there that are hearing the show today, Honolulu PD actually put out a series of, and I think they've restarted it, on paranormal incidents that their officers have had on duty, and they've recreated them and put them on YouTube. Super fascinating stuff. And of course, if you've ever been to Hawaii, very spiritual people, and they have a lot of legends there, and they embrace it. And they've now put it out on YouTube, and it is some really cool stuff. Look up Honolulu PD on YouTube, and you're going to be really surprised. And lots of folks are in our business are now recognizing it, and they're not afraid to talk about it anymore. I've had Chris George, Ike Enzi have both been on the show. I've had law enforcement officers as a part of my team. So yeah, there's more and more of that.
Well, I do know law enforcement officers are good at asking questions. They know what questions to ask when they're investigating something.
Well, yeah, and that's one reason. That's how we, as the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, we kind of take our investigations almost as if it's conducting a criminal investigation. We look at evidence, we do interviews, we try to do things in a methodical way, and I think it makes for a more thorough inquiry into it. See, you just can't hear a bump in the night and say, oh, it's something paranormal. You've got to investigate it. And then when you get something, you have to research it and find out if it's historically accurate. And then you have to debunk things that might be man-made or natural. It's all a process.
What constitutes evidence in paranormal investigations?
Wow, now there's the question, Cliff. Evidence. Yeah. In my world, evidence is something tangible that I would take to court to either prove or disprove something occurred. And it's got to be something that people can see and understand and touch sometimes.
Mhm.
That's been the problem in the paranormal world. You just don't have that. We've got a lot of equipment that we use. Much of it I have faith in, but it's still theoretical.
Right.
There has never been a piece of evidence that nobody's been able to argue. And when I say that, there's things that we have gotten, and I'll love to talk about some of that is irrefutable to me because I was there and I saw it. But somebody out there said, oh, you could have done this and you could have done that. Well, no, we didn't. It was legitimate. And that's because folks still have trouble comprehending or believing that these things occur. And my favorite line is, until Abe Lincoln pulls up a chair in front of me and sits down and said, yo, Larry, this is what it's like on the other side. And I've videotaped it for everybody to see. Until that happens, I don't know that we don't have that kind of evidence yet. Now, I say that, Cliff, but we've captured some things on our team that you just can't explain. Now, if you were there and you saw it, no question it happened. But there's always going to be somebody out there who said, oh, you made that up, or you created that.
The naysayers.
Yeah, the naysayers. And it's good to be skeptical, good to question.
Oh, yeah.
Good to question.
Mhm.
But sometimes folks just they'll question the irrefutable. They'll question just because they don't want to believe. They've had experiences that caused them to not believe, such as dealing with not a naysayer, but a faker before, that does jade a lot of people. So it's just a very, very difficult thing when you talk about evidence. One of my favorite, I've got a couple of favorite pieces of evidence. One of them is in Fellsmere, in the old school, for example.
Ooh,
And,
schools are great places.
Schools, hospitals, jails, anytime where you've got a lot of emotion and a lot of things like that. But we were in the old school in Fellsmere. This is the Saturday before Hurricane Irma hit
Ooh,
a couple of years ago, in 17, I think. And some of my guys were upstairs and in the auditorium in the old school. And there's a little boy there we call Billy. Okay. We don't know if Billy's his real name, but that's what we call him. He acknowledged that one time before. So one of my guys asks Billy, is this the room you like to be in, or something along those lines? And they, of course, had the audio recorders going, and you get a little boy's voice. It's on our website. If you want to check it out, folks, you can www.indianriverhauntings.com or www.paranormalfbi.com. You can hear this on there. And the little boy answered, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just like that. I mean, it's absolutely unmistakable. We were also
just like a little boy would.
Yeah.
He'd
Yeah.
respect his elders, even in the situation he's in now.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because I'm going to do a quick sidebar.
Okay.
Never has there ever been any reports or documentation of tragedy, death in the school, ever. So I would get questions. Well, how could a little boy be in there? I mean, there's a lot of different theories that we could talk about when it comes to that. But most generally, it's thought that maybe when folks pass, they just go back to the place they were the happiest, or the place they felt most comfortable. We can also talk about the fact that sometimes the other side does lie to us, and that does happen, but that's a whole different subject.
They're not the most honest sometimes.
Sometimes you don't always know who you're dealing with.
Right.
But
Depends.
But there's no question we got this voice. We've got it on. It's recorded. We've got it in that same building. We had what we call a disembodied voice come through one time. I had a group of folks, and some of you out there may be listening, that were there. They were in the basement of the school in a room that was actually filled with a lot of electronics, which meant much of our equipment wouldn't work in there because it's designed to detect electromagnetic fields. So they were in there, and they were just they were recording it. And I do believe our folks have come on.
In?
Yeah, I think. But anyway, I'll finish this quick story real quick. They were all talking, and somebody's phone goes off. It was, I think it was Siri or something like that. And everybody started laughing. Can I help you? And all four people started laughing. There are four people there. And suddenly you heard a fifth voice. It was a child laughing. And everybody in the room stopped and said, did you hear that? Yeah, I heard that. I heard a kid's voice. Yeah, I heard it too. And
Wow.
and one of my guys who was a deputy sheriff held up his phone and says, yeah, and I recorded it. And it was a fifth voice. And that's what we call a disembodied voice as
Okay.
compared to an EVP. Caught it directly, a kid laughing. So that's also on our websites too, if you want to check that out.
Okay.
And our guests from Australia have arrived. Pete, can you hear me? Not quite. Well,
He might have to unmute his microphone.
okay. Folks, I'm really pleased that our guests, they're in Australia, so there's a big time difference here. And it's Pete Cazalato and Dan Ricard of Night Watchers Paranormal, by the way.
Oh, he's got to unmute. There we go.
There, Pete, can you hear me?
Testing.
Directly from
Testing,
Brisbane,
testing.
Australia. We now have at least two are
Alright.
testing it now. So we're very happy.
Testing.
we can hear
We can hear you, Pete.
Testing.
He's not hearing us.
Mate, I'm trying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
Turn your headsets up a little if you could hear me. That way you can hear.
Can you hear us yet?
Let me make sure. Yeah, we're all hooked up. I have to check my side too.
Yeah.
Strange things do happen when this show's on, you know.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, Pete, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. Welcome from Australia. And folks, I got to tell you, it's about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning there. So these guys have came on the show when they should be sleeping or investigating, one of the two. But we're really, really happy to have them here. So I'll finish up some of my stories because I got a special show that's coming up in a couple of weeks with my team, and we'll talk more about all this stuff then. But Pete, is Dan with you?
Dan, I think he's was supposed to be up at 3. It's at 3. It's 2:28 a.m. in the morning here. So
Oh my goodness. See, this is the dedication these guys had. And Pete and his partner Dan run a YouTube channel, Night Watchers Paranormal Australia. It's a YouTube channel that features paranormal investigations and explorations with 100% real, raw, and authentic paranormal evidence. And I've seen it, folks. It's some pretty cool stuff. The hosts, Pete and Dan, try to communicate with spirits from the afterlife, traveling to various haunted locations to investigate paranormal activity within the location, all in Australia, I assume, right? You haven't left Australia yet,
Yeah.
have you, Pete?
yes, it is here in Australia, mate.
And I want to encourage everybody to subscribe to their YouTube channel, Night Watchers Paranormal Australia. Really cool stuff. And let's face it, folks, all of us here in America love to hear Australians talk. It is enjoyable. So, Pete, welcome to the show. Sorry about the time frame there. So I'm glad
That's
you're
all
on.
good, Larry. That's all good, mate.
Okay. Well, Pete, tell us, I've been kind of rambling on here for a little bit about my team, my YouTube channel and whatnot, but we're here to talk about Night Watchers of Paranormal of Australia. Tell myself and my guests a little bit about your show and how you got there.
Wow. Our show, we've been running now for about approximately 2 years. I remember Dan came to me and said, hey, come over for a coffee. So I went to his place, had a coffee. He goes, what do you reckon, mate? We start a YouTube channel. And I thought, well, yeah, let's give this a crack and see how we go. Now, it was really interesting. We first started doing weird food tastings, but it just wasn't right for us. So because I've had paranormal experiences as a young man, Dan goes, well, let's give this paranormal investigation a go. Oh, why not? So basically we started to do local places like cemeteries and graveyards local to us. Then it got interesting. So we got our first little bits of evidence, and then it started to grow into what we have today with Night Watchers Paranormal Australia. It was an absolutely amazing ride. Now, I think we've done well over 100 investigations now, from train stations to old heritage listed homes. But the evidence that we've got has been absolutely phenomenal.
Well, a lot of folks look at Australia, especially in the paranormal field, feel that
Mm.
Australia is one of the most haunted places in the world. Would you agree with that, and why?
I definitely agree with that. And the reason why is because you've got to remember our history is not as old as the United States there. So when we have spirits and especially we've had dealings with Aboriginal spirits and other types of spirits, but some of the places we go to have had really tragic stories. I know with one of the places that we've been to, there's been fires in this. Like one of the first places we actually filmed is out in the bush in a place called Gameri. Now, this place, it's an old hotel. Now, it burnt to the ground and 7 people died on site. Now, they, this is back in the 1930s. They rebuilt this place, put the same hotel on the location. Now, when we went in and investigated it, we caught on camera like fire embers coming off. We're standing in the middle of this hotel and there was nothing there, but on the camera you could see fire embers coming up off the place. Now we've caught an apparition in a room that is meant to be one of the most haunted places within this hotel. And we saw an apparition go straight across our camera. So it's been an absolute an amazing thing.
Wow. Do you think that the fact that Australia started its existence basically as a penal colony, did we lose him?
No, he's still there.
No,
Oh, there you are.
I'm
Just
still
the
here.
picture.
Okay. Do you think one of the reasons why the hauntings might be so intense there is because Australia started off its existence basically as a penal colony, at least for the Europeans. I mean, the Aboriginals were there, but do you think that had anything to do with it?
I would say so. Well, you have a look at New South Wales, where this penal colony first started. Now, the history with the amount of people that died traveling over here back in that time period was absolutely phenomenal. So, yeah, I would reckon it, especially in New South Wales and places like that, it'd have a big, big difference and a big I suppose people would experience a lot of things. Like a lot of the haunted jails we have in Sydney are absolutely amazing with the history. And if you have a look down in Tasmania at the jail that's down in Port Arthur, now that location itself has a really, really full-on history with the penal colony that they set up there in Tasmania. And it's one of the most haunted places in Australia.
Have you been able to investigate that place?
Not yet. We are actually going down to New South Wales, Tasmania this year to film that location. So we're really excited about that. One place that I am going is in South Australia. Now, this is through another paranormal group that we work with, Spirit Crew Australia. And I'm going to get the opportunity to go into one of the most haunted prisons, old prisons down there, to do some investigations just in the new year. So when we get the opportunity to investigate these places, the activity is just amazing. Like it's really incredible to see. So we're lucky to get that opportunity to be invited there.
What is jails? Of course, jails and prisons, same thing here. Those types of places. In fact, I was getting ready to tell you a story, Cliff, about a prison that we did here. They always tend to be filled with that negative energy, or that energy that manages to come out when you're investigating it. What is the most haunted place that you've had an opportunity to visit in Australia?
Okay. There's actually been a couple of places. Now, where we live here on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, there's this old, it's like an abandoned house. Now, this house has been taken back by nature. It's got a very tragic story that the owner, an elderly lady, passed away in this house about 40, 50 years ago. Now, because this house was built on a nature reserve, the interesting thing about that is that the council or the government can't knock the house down because it's on protected land. Now, this poor lady wasn't found for about, I think it was about 6 months. So it was a very tragic story and what had happened with this lady. Now, because the bush, nature has taken over this house, it's become very decrepit and old. So the first time we investigated this place was one of the most weirdest things that we'd ever experienced. Now, we got into this place and we heard people talking within the building. Now, we went into this building and did a couple of sensory deprivation sessions, a couple of EVP sessions, and we got amazing pickup of people talking through these devices. But then we went out to grab a camera, still camera, and literally the car is not very far away from this house. We've walked outside, grabbed the camera, literally outside of this building for 2 minutes, started walking back into the house. Now, this house is in complete black in the middle of the bush. We actually heard male voices talking within that building.
Disembodied.
Now,
voice.
there was absolutely no one within this building. It was one of the most weirdest experiences. Now, the second time we investigated this location, we walked into the place and we'd done the investigation and we're about to walk out. Now, we were standing, had a bit of light rain, and you've got to realize that you'll hear someone walking in through leaves and the amount of bush that's in this place. Now, we're standing at the front door about to exit out of the building, and we heard, well, come rushing up like a whooshing sound, rushing right up to my ear. And it scared the living heck out of me. It was amazing. I spun around, because you can see on the video that we filmed, I spun around to look to find out what it was, and there was nothing there. Now, both Dan and myself backed out of this location very quickly, so we didn't know what it was. From that experience, we pretty much heard something run across the roof. Like, it was, whatever it was big.
Mhm.
Now, in Australia here, we haven't got anything that big that can get up on a roof so quickly and run across it without it being seen. Now, that was an amazing experience. The second location that absolutely amazes me is called Peachester Cemetery. Now, this place here is up in the mountains on the Sunshine Coast.
Where is the
The first
Sunshine
one-
Coast? Not to interrupt you, but where is the Sunshine Coast? Because I said you're from Brisbane, but I think I got that wrong.
Yeah. The Sunshine Coast is about an hour and a half drive from Brisbane City going north up the coastline.
Gotcha.
So I come from Brisbane. Dan comes from the Sunshine Coast. I moved to Brisbane, but yeah, it's about an hour and a half, 40 minutes from where
Just
I
want to give folks an idea where you're at. Go ahead, finish your story.
Yeah. This cemetery is very small. It's not a big cemetery, and it's been there since the 1900s. Now, the experiences that I've had walking into that cemetery, we've filmed that because we're a part of Paraflex TV in the United States there out of Hollywood, California.
Uh-huh.
We filmed that location, an exclusive for Paraflex. Now, this location, we've actually got disembodied voices caught on camera. And what I mean by that is that if we're standing at a location and you can hear nothing around you, but your camera actually picks up voices,
Mhm.
and you won't find out that until you start to edit your videos.
Right.
Now, with that, it was absolutely amazing because we caught chanting. Never heard it before, but chanting on the camera that we didn't hear while we were there. Now, on that first original video that we did there, we've caught, took some stills. There were a pair of red eyes watching us from a tree. Now, the reason why I know it's not an animal is because of the way the eyes were positioned. Like, if you look at a face, you can see two eyes looking at you. With an animal, especially a koala, they're slightly off-centered and a lot closer than what these eyes were. Now, if you watch that first video, it was amazing what we caught there. We've also caught like it's one of the most creepiest feelings you'll ever feel, you know, this cemetery. We've done EVPs where we had one EV come back to us saying the power of Satan. Now, when you first originally hear that, it kind of takes you a little bit back. You're not ready for it.
Right.
But we had another voice come through, a female voice saying, I want to live. So when you get experiences like that and the evidence that you get, it's amazing. One other location that we have is one of our best pieces of evidence we have ever captured. Now, this piece of evidence was caught at a cemetery up in Mapleton, which is on the Sunshine Coast, but about 20 minutes drive up into the hills. Now, we were setting up for an investigation. This was about 6 o'clock at night, which here in Australia gets dark. So we set up our static cams to film the cemetery because we like getting static cams for our subscribers and viewers to look so they feel part of what we do. Now, we set up this camera. We've got it filming the cemetery. Dan and I are walking through this cemetery, setting up motion detectors and other pieces of equipment to try and gather evidence. Now, we did the investigation and you could feel that there was something there, and we got some interesting EVPs come through. But the funny thing is that when we put that static cam up on our YouTube channel, we let the subscribers go through that. We don't view those static cams. So any evidence that is picked up, they let us know and then we put it into the video.
Got it.
Now, the funny thing about that is that on that one video, we put a 55-second clip of what we captured on our YouTube channel. But we caught a shadow figure come out of the bush, come around the trees, look at us, and then dive into the ground. Now, we've tried to debunk it. Everyone that has seen this footage has not to this day been able to debunk it. And we've been featured on a lot of other YouTube channels around the world in their top 5 videos. Now, this thing, when we went back to try and debunk it, because Dan and I never fake evidence, we never lie to our subscribers or people that watch our content, because we both find that if we do that, one day you're going to get caught. And then where's your credibility going to be?
And I've looked at your stuff, and I got to tell you, I am impressed with the links that you guys go to debunk and recreate. So I can attest to it, folks. In fact, big fan of this YouTube channel. That's why I'm wearing their T-shirt right now.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Okay.
That's
big fan of them because they're, in my opinion, the real deal. So go ahead.
Thank you so much, Larry. I really appreciate that, mate. You know, it means a lot to us when people actually watch our content and our videos and say, hey, guys, that's awesome. That is legit. And that's what we want. But this thing, when we tried to go back and debunk it, the funny thing is that this thing looked like it was about 7 feet tall. Dan grabbed the camera, walked back to where we had our static camera up, and I walked down to where this apparition was. Now, I was a quarter of the size of the apparition. Now, if you put those two images up beside each other, you'll see a massive size difference. And the speed that it moved at, I tried to move as fast as it did. I couldn't do it, especially with a little bit of terrain that was there and diving around the trees. And you got to remember too, we did it in the daylight. This happened at night. So when you have experiences like that and you actually see things or experience things or catch things on camera, you've got to think, well, hang on a second, this could be real. This could be something that is life-changing. So when you find that evidence and see things for yourself, it's something amazing and something absolutely incredible. We do a lot of lives as well. And what Dan and I both always say on these lives is that, you know, a spirit is not there on command. So you can't go up to a spirit and say, hey, please start performing for me, because they won't do that. If a spirit wants to be seen or interact with you, it's their choice. It's not ours. So the thing is that you have to always be polite and going with love, peace, and respect. Because if you don't, you're not going to have that interaction. Now, I've seen investigators through YouTube and on TV shows that they'll go into a location for hours at a time and they get nothing. It's the way you go in and approach those spirits. So if you show them love and respect, you're going to get interaction. Like we go in,
Absolutely.
sorry, mate.
No, so I absolutely agree with you. So
Yeah. But it's amazing. Like we go into a location and we'll film for like 2 hours. Then we get so much activity. And then I watch other people that go in for 8, 9 hours and get virtually nothing. So it's your attitude and the way you are that spirits interact. And that's the most important thing, is that if you go in with that attitude, you're going to get interaction. But you've got to go in with that peaceful heart, because if you don't, nothing's going to happen for you.
yeah, treat everything with respect is our mantra. So I totally agree with you. Hey, you're mentioning this big apparition, that which leads me to this question: do you guys investigate, take reports, or look for other paranormal activities such as cryptids, Bigfoot, UFOs? Do you work with that at all?
We haven't we haven't gone into that much, but I'm very interested in the Yowie, which is very similar to your Bigfoot here in Australia.
So oh, you
Yeah.
have that. Okay. That was my next question.
We do. There's one place close to where we live. It's out in the bush and it's a tunnel. It's called Dalarcha Tunnel. Now, with this tunnel, it has amazing history. They built this tunnel for World War II. Now, a lot of the Australian soldiers were shipped from the top of Australia back down through this tunnel, down the countryside, down through the tunnel and back to Brisbane to get the surgery and the medical attention they needed back in World War II. Now, this place here, the Dalarcha Tunnel, has apparently a lot of interaction with a Yowie, where people have had rocks thrown at them. You hear movement outside. We did a collaboration video there not long ago with another paranormal YouTuber. And the ones I mentioned before, which was Spirit Crew Australia, Angela and her team. Now, we've had rocks thrown at us. You could hear someone running around in the bush. And when we went out there, we knew we were the only ones there because we went out very late at night. And with the Australian scrub, it is really dense where this tunnel is. Now, we've had a lot of interaction with rocks and being thrown at us and the sounds of people running around these tunnels. So I do believe in Yowies and cryptids and things of that nature, but it's a matter of finding the time to get there to do these investigations with this type of thing. That's why we focus on the paranormal so much. I think for both Dan and I, it's important, especially with my history as a young man. Now, one of the biggest experiences I had as a young man was, I think it was about 12 years old. Now, I lived with my parents and my dad was an interstate truck driver. So a lot of the times he'd be away driving in his state. So mum was always there to look after us. I remember going to bed one night and I was lying there talking with my brother and he fell asleep and I'm lying there thinking, oh yeah, I'm never going to sleep. But I had this experience where these set of hands come up, grabbed me on both sides of my arms and pulled me down and held me to the bed. Now, it was one of the most horrific experiences of my life. I couldn't sleep the whole night. I'm lying there in pure fear. And then as the sun rose, the hands disappeared back under my bed. Now, I was terrified. I jumped up to jumped off my bed and I looked under my bed and nothing was there. So for me, that's what's pushed myself, and with Dan's experiences he's had as a young man, that his family has experienced, really pushed us into this side of the paranormal. And I agree with you that with cryptids and stuff like that, if you're really going to look into this paranormal umbrella, you've got to take every facet and aspect of the paranormal, because if you don't, you're just selling yourself short.
Well, it's also just that giant question. I always go back to the fact that folks have had experience, your experience that you just described to us, and experience a lot of us have had. You're intelligent, educated, stable individuals. Things have happened and it's been happening for centuries. So something's got to be going on. So let's find out what that is and what's the cause of it. What do you think, going back to the world of ghost apparitions and the paranormal, What do you think it is? Do you have an opinion, a philosophy, a thought?
Well, I've got a lot of different ideas. I know with Dan, he's very skeptical. He believes like I do, but he comes from a skeptical mind. I think it's very important to have that skeptical mind
Agreed.
because it allows you to look at situations and experiences from a different point of view. Now, for me, I was raised as a young man very religious, and I believe in angels and demons, things of that nature. But my whole idea and how I view it is that I think with spirit, if a person passes on and they're still waiting to move on, or they need help to move on, um, I think 90% of it is a human spirit. Now, the thing is, this is how I look at it. If you are a bad person in life, say you're a murderer or someone that was very evil or bad, when you pass over, you're going to be the same. So, hence, if you're a bad person in life, I think you're going to be a bad person, a bad spirit, like an evil spirit. So that's where I see like a lot of people have interactions with bad spirits and blame demonic entities, things of that nature. 9 times out of 10, I think that it's going to be a bad human spirit. You also get your good human spirits where a person that has lived a very chaste life and a very uh, good life where they've treated people with respect and so forth, and they've lived the best life they can. When they pass on, they're going to be a good spirit. So, for example, your guardian spirits, and like a lot of people see loved ones when they pass, when like as young children, they see loved ones come into their house where maybe a grandfather or grandmother or an uncle or an aunt that are good spirits. Now, on the flip side of that, because of the way I've been brought up, I believe in angels and demons. And I think personally that with the research I've done and the investigations I've done outside of YouTube for on private home matters and stuff like that, I believe that they are evil entities, entities that are so old and
Maybe non-human?
non-human, definitely,
Yeah.
that they use us as toys. Now, demonic entities are extremely rare. For me, being a paranormal investigator, and you too, Larry, being a paranormal investigator, I think it's going to be something extremely rare that maybe once in a lifetime we'd get to experience that type of entity. Now, I've had experiences with poltergeists too. I remember when I had my child. I think I was in my 30s, and my son was born at hospital with his mother. I'd gone up to see him and the birth and everything, got home, and I had an experience with a house. And I believe that a lot of entities will stick to a place, you know. Now, this place that I lived in was an old barn that was converted into a house. Now, the interesting thing about this house was that when I lived there, there was always something happening, some noises or something like that. I remember I just had a shower, about to jump into bed after the birth of my child at 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, I had a lot of experiences, like small things just build up to this main event. Now, I remember walking out of the shower, every light in the house was flicking on and off. Every cupboard and door in the house was slamming, opening, and closing. And it terrified me. And I screamed at the top of my voice that it to stop, and it did. So there's many different types of entities and spirits out there.
Yeah, and being a cop for as long as I have, it's easy to see evil in this world, no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting close on time, my friend. Man, I got so much more I want to talk about too with you. But tell us about how can they find you on YouTube so they can check. And I strongly recommend you to check out his YouTube. Where do we find you at?
Okay, guys, what you need to do is go to Night Watchers Paranormal Australia. Now, we have the YouTube channel there. If you go on, you'll see a lot of different types of investigations and places like that. You can also check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, under Night Watchers Paranormal Australia. We have a Facebook group. I think we're at about 2.3 thousand member members on that group. You can also check out our personal Instagrams, which is Pete Cazzolato, Cazzolato, and Daniel Rickard, Ickard. You can see our personal journeys, and you can also check us out on all social medias under Night Watches Paranormal Australia.
And I strongly recommend folks to do that. Australia has always been a place that I've wanted to go. Also, check us out at www.indianriverhauntings.com and paranormalfbi.com. And you can catch us on Facebook at both Indian River Hauntings and the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigations. Pete, I can't thank you enough for getting up so early, and sorry about the time change there, dude. But it was really, I'd like to do this again if I can con you into getting up early one night.
100%, mate. No
All
drama.
right, my friend. And I want to talk to you again really soon. And folks, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It's been a great show. Until we get to next week, we've got another exciting guest coming on, a medium. So I'm anxious to have you listen to her. And until then, everybody take care of yourself. Take care of your family. It's the Christmas season, and it's summer down there, right, Pete?
It is hot.
Yeah, it's winter up here. Even in Florida, it's getting a little cold. But anyway, thanks you so much for joining us, everybody. Check this out on YouTube if you didn't catch it live. And until then, take care of your family. Give your kids a hug. Remember, you never know when it's the last day. And until we meet again, folks, we'll see all of you on the other side. Have a great day. And thanks again, Pete.
Thank you for joining us for Indian River Hauntings presents Encounters with the Other Side. If you'd like to join Larry for a ghost tour or one of his events, check the Indian River Hauntings website